welcome back to the Movies Made Us Do It. Me and Matt are back. How are you, Matt?
Pretty sweet, sir. Yourself?
I am very well. We were just saying how much we enjoyed rewatching this week's film, Ghostbusters. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, we should probably start recording, because otherwise we're going to talk about the whole thing.
Yeah.
So, 1984.
Yep.
Ivan Reitman. Written by Dan Aykroyd, and then presumably Harold Ramis made it make more sense.
Yes.
And brought it a little bit more down to earth.
Yeah.
But the combination of the two,
especially when you consider the original script was like set in the future.
Well,
and there were like lots of teams of
yeah. I mean, especially
or Ghost Smashers, as I think they were originally called.
I think any time you have a candid interview with Dan Aykroyd, you can see he's quite out there. He's quite out there, and he believes
really
in
is.
Like every conspiracy and every fantastical thing known to man. He pretty much believes in all of it.
He's got an amazing memory as well. Because
it's unbelievable.
He's like an incident, and he'll know exactly when that incident happened.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Dates. He'll give you all the names of the. He's autistic. He's slightly
really?
autistic.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I think him. Just like we didn't mention it actually the other week, but Daryl Hannah, she's autistic as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they have similar sort of quirks and things.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think Dan. You know, I'm not an expert on any of that sort of thing, so I don't really know. But I've heard them discuss it, and yeah, I think that might be to do with obsessiveness about it.
That may well be, yeah, because he's got an absolute love for the paranormal, and like, you know, UFOs, aliens, ghosts.
Yeah, I think he had
everything.
He had a program in Canada about that sort of thing.
Yes, he did, and he claims that it got stopped because of the government or something, he knew too much or something. His show got cancelled, and he was like, "Oh, it got cancelled because you know, the aliens done it." But yeah, either way, between the two of them, and I do to this day, even on this rewatch, I still question how much of this film was actually written versus how much of it was ad-libbed. Certainly the dialogue.
Well, the dialogue I think was. Yeah, I mean they clearly did most of the dialogue like on the day. I think.
Yeah, I mean you have.
They must have had like a vague outline of what they were doing.
For sure, they obviously had the lines of what was going on in the scene and lines to work around. But you've effectively got the best people from the best period of SNL all in one place at the same time.
Yeah, and there's Second City as well, all the Canadian ones, which is like amazing. So you've got, you know, it's just the not only that, the period around here where they were, you know, the movies they were making. So you know, like Stripes and you know all those movies that you know Ivan Reitman had to do with and Ramis were doing. They were all really fucking good, and I think that most of them hold up. I think I
absolutely do. Yeah,
I haven't seen Stripes for a number of years, and I'm sure some of that probably is a bit sus now.
I think that's either on Netflix or Amazon, because I came across it the other day and I was very tempted.
Is it?
I was very tempted to pull the trigger.
If it's on, I think I will actually. It's been a while since I've seen that.
That's been a long time since I've seen Stripes, and I think you're right. Some of that might be a bit, but we'll see.
Yeah.
This, however, was I mean I kind of knew it was going to be an absolute joy to watch, but it was an absolute joy to watch. I had so much fun.
It really was.
And you were saying before we started recording that you know, you weren't sure, but then as soon as you started watching it, every line was like straight in
all the lines came flooding back.
I was the same. I was like, you know, every time I'm like, I guess I should probably watch it, because obviously we're recording the show and I should rewatch it. And as soon as I put it on, I was like, every line. I was like, yep, there we go. It's fine.
It is. I mean, I think we were saying, I've probably watched this is the same amount as I've watched Star Wars.
Yes. So
when I was a kid, I mean, since you know, I kind of watched the Star Wars, at least the 3 core movies every year.
Right.
But
okay. So I've probably
this
watched
one not so much.
Yeah.
In later years.
So I'm probably, I don't know. I think I watched Ghostbusters more as a kid because we had the VHS before we had Star Wars on VHS. And when you're
sacrilege to admit that, isn't it?
Is it? I don't know. Not anymore. Star Wars is dead.
Not anymore.
Dead series. Dead. No. No. I love Star Wars. I love the original trilogy. I think it was just, it's just. I mean, Ghostbusters came out in 1984. I was born in 1984. Yeah. So it was all available when I was a kid,
Yeah.
By the time I was old enough to remember watching things, it was all available. It just so happened that Ghostbusters was one of those films we had early on. And as you do when you're a kid, you just watch the same thing over and over again. I mean, I still do that as an adult, actually. I don't even know why
I was going to say, there's
like, if I see a film I like, I will probably end up watching it like 3 times in that week or 4 times. I'll just keep watching it. If I like it. It's just, I've always been like that. That's why I'm terrified of, drugs and stuff. Because I'm like, if I like something, I'll just keep doing it.
That's why I never got into another reason why I never got into gambling
exactly,
as well.
Exactly the same. Because I am like that way still as an adult. But as a kid, all the time. The same VHS on and on and on. And I remember Ghostbusters, like the back of my hand.
So I was 9 when it came out.
You were peak age for this film, really. I mean, I guess some of the humor probably went over your head, but most of it.
I expect so. I first watched this actually at school.
Oh, wow.
It was like an end of term.
Oh, I used to love those days.
Treat for us.
I remember those days.
We were all in the hall. They wheeled out the TV and they showed it to us as a treat, and we all sat there and we watched it. And I remember like jumping at certain bits and being like,
it's got some really good horror bits, and we'll get to that as we go through it. I was
definitely spooked by the librarian when I was.
Do you know? Yes, the librarian. Well, we'll get to that in a second.
But... And I remember the odd kid not being happy and like having to like kids leaving and sort of going to play in the playground because they couldn't cope. And I remember some people screaming and stuff. And me and my friend were just sat there like completely in awe of this movie. It was absolutely fantastic.
A revelation.
And my other memory of this is we had a school disco, which I probably was the year after.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, I don't know why, the DJ had 3 records, which he played over and over again at this school disco. And
wow.
One of them was the Ghostbusters tune. One of them was Agadoo. And it always escapes me what the third one was.
It's probably Batman, 1989.
It might have been
on Prince on repeat.
So awful.
Sounds amazing.
It was like it was brilliant the first time. Like they played Ghostbusters, we all leapt around and jumped about the dance floor. And we're like acting. And after about the 3rd or 4th time, it's like, is this all now. He's got?
No. Well,
I still have no idea what happened to the DJ. Why he only seemed to have 3 records. I don't know whether there was a mix-up or something, and that was somebody didn't turn up.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Sounds like it. Well, your school was a bit cooler than my school. I think the only movie I remember watching in school that wasn't a school project, and I do love it, but it's no. I love it for what it is, but it's no Ghostbusters. Was Condor Man.
Condor Man has a special place in my heart.
It has a special place in my heart. I own it on DVD because it has a special place in my heart. But it is
terrible
fucking
movie.
Awful.
It's the thing is I think I've not gone back to it.
It's
for a long
aged
time.
Well.
And I think
surprised
it's
to know.
probably a good idea not to.
Probably, yeah.
Because I think it might be one of those movies that I want to preserve my memories of it.
Yeah, it is a so bad it's great movie. And it is very entertaining, but yeah, it's no Ghostbusters. That's for sure. So, shall we go through it?
Let's go.
Yeah, so Ghostbusters 1984, the year I was born. And, well, we open with some wonderful 50s science fiction music going on. It's like the score is very 50s sci-fi horror.
The whole score of this movie is fucking awesome.
Yeah,
it's a brilliant score.
Open with that almost iconic kind of 50s sci-fi theme hitting as we go to the library. And this is shot like and I can see why, because you were just saying that as kids, like a lot of you they're scared of the library scene. This is shot like a straight horror movie. This bit, like, it's like it just is. It's almost like a Poltergeist kind of Spielberg kind of horror in a way.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. I mean,
it's not like horrendous horror, but it's like that kind of family friendly-ish horror.
Yeah.
And it really is a creepy scene. You've got this lovely librarian lady walking along, and she starts having this encounter, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, you get the cards blowing out,
cards
and you get
blowing around. I think things happen
books,
behind her, don't they? And she's like, "Oh, did that happen?" Yeah,
books move first, and then the cards get blown out and stuff. Which is, I love all practical effects, all people behind the wall blowing air through the cards to make them work and stuff.
It's tremendous. It's tremendous. And then, of course, it culminates in her turning around and seeing something coming at her, and the camera kind of zooms in towards her. We get like a white light and wind, and then we get the iconic Ghostbusters logo come up, as we are introduced to Peter Venkman, and we're introduced to him via his door, which has "Go to Hell, Venkman" written on the front of it, which I never noticed until last night. I was like,
apparently in the original script there were more obscenities on it. Right. Obviously, it got toned down a lot from the original script. So
fair enough. And he is doing. He's parapsychology professor. I think all three of them are parapsychology professors.
Yeah,
obviously Winston George later.
In the basement, basically.
But he's doing a psychic test on these two people. This poor guy who clearly Venkman has no interest in and just wants to punish. And this young attractive girl that Peter's very much interested in. Yeah. And I'm never quite sure. I was wondering whether they were boyfriend girlfriend. And whether he's just being an absolute dick to the boyfriend here.
I don't think so.
But I don't know. But in any case, they're guessing. They're trying to guess the cards. They both get the cards completely wrong. And for her, he's like, "Oh my god, you're absolutely right." And for him, he keeps electrocuting him. So the idea is that when they get it wrong,
I love the first electric shock, and the guy's gum like falls out.
Yes, he spits the gum out onto the table. Yeah, that's tremendous. And so he keeps shocking this guy, and eventually the guy's like, "Oh, it just like three wavy lines, a couple of wavy lines," and he's right. But of course, Venkman still shocks him. And I don't want to do this anymore because I'm getting pretty tired of this. It's like, you're getting paid, aren't you? It's like, if he storms out, he goes, "You can keep the $5." Yeah,
it's like...
$5 to be electrocuted. Wonderful.
And the funniest thing is when she says the last card she identifies, she says it's a figure 8. Those cards do not consist of a figure 8. There is no figure 8 in those cards. There's literally a star, a square, a circle, and wavy lines, and I think maybe a triangle. Mm-hmm. But there are definitely no figure 8, and that completely. Okay, I love it. Can you see these things? Are you looking? It's like, no, I can't. They're totally normal.
Yeah. It's fine. And then of course he's like suggesting that they meet later that evening at 8:00. She says, "Oh, about 8:00," and he was, "I was just going to say 8:00. You are, and she's like. She's like, "Do you really think I've got the gift?" Phenomenon. Yeah, she's like, "Do you really think I've got the gift, Mr. Venkman?" He's like, "Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely psychic."
And I love it. Then that's where we get Ray come in.
Ray bursts in, full of excitement, saying that they finally got it. They finally got what they've been searching for all this time. There has been, as we know from the opening, a ghostly encounter at New York Public Library.
And I love the fact that Ray is completely oblivious, bless him. But I love the
he doesn't even see the girl there, or the situation. He doesn't read the room at all.
No, and they actually watched this movie twice last night.
Nice.
I watched it, and then I watched it with the commentary.
Oh, cool.
And they all say basically it was Ivan Reitman, Howard Ramis, and I think the producer. I forget who the producer was.
It was never going to be Murray.
But no. And they were basically they as soon as he came through the room, like one of the guys said, here he comes. This is the heart of the movie. He's the heart of the Ghostbusters.
Oh yeah, Ray is very much the heart of the Ghostbusters.
He's completely the heart.
And then obviously Winston is the audience. Egon is very much
the brains,
and the science. And Venkman's a dickhead. He's Bill Murray. He's basically just Bill Murray.
Yeah, exactly.
He's just a lovable dickhead. And we'll get to that in a bit, because the bit in Dana's apartment, like watching that as an adult, you're like, God, this guy is...
He is such a creep.
Such a creep. Things you don't see as a kid, right? You're just like, oh, this is really funny. And as an adult, you're like, oh my God.
No, you just think... The thing is that I think I'd probably seen a couple of Bill Murray films by then.
Yeah. You know Bill Murray's shtick by then, I think.
Yeah, and I think as a kid, it's just
Bill Murray.
Charming old Bill Murray, isn't it? It's like you don't think about the weird sort of stuff that he says and does. You think, no, he's not right.
Yeah. But in any case, Ray excitedly takes Peter down to the public library, where we're introduced to Egon, who is listening to a table as they approach, and of course Venkman slams a book onto the table,
tapping the table. He's going.
and you immediately get the people working the library all look at them angry because they've made noise. It's that old gag, making noise in a library gag. And of course, Egon explains to Venkman that there's definitely something here. We've actually got something this time. So they head down.
I love the line there as well about when he says about this reminds me of that time you tried to drill a hole in your head.
And he says that would have worked if you hadn't stopped me.
Yeah.
I want to know what that was. What was he doing?
I have no idea. But again, that was another ad-libbed line by them.
I know.
Completely ad-libbed.
This is what I mean. This is just lightning in a bottle, this film. It really is. It's the top of their game, these comedians all coming together for this amazing film. And then we get the really funny bit with Venkman interviewing the librarian, and obviously he doesn't buy it at all. And the manager or whoever it is tries to get involved, and Venkman's like, "Hey, back off, man! I'm a scientist."
He says, it's the questions. First of all, he says, "Is there a history of mental illness in your family?" And she says, "My uncle thought he was Saint Jerome." And he's like, "That's a yes." Apparently, Saint Jerome is the patron saint of librarians.
Right.
And then he asks basically whether she's menstruating.
Yeah. That's when the manager gets involved.
That's when the manager's like, "Is that?" And he's like, "Back off!" And apparently, according to something I was reading, menstruation apparently is also can be something an indicator of psychotic episodes or psychic episodes.
I didn't actually know that.
I mean, whether that's an actual really legitimate thing, I don't know, but it's supposed that it has to do with that sort of thing. So it's actually a serious question.
So Venkman wasn't being as much of a dick in that scene as I thought he was being.
Exactly. There's actually a genuine. He's not just being a prick.
I genuinely thought he was just being an asshole. So that's interesting. So in any case, they head down to where the encounter happened in the opening. And first they find some ectoplasm, which Egon is delighted by.
Yeah, give me some samples.
Venkman's just disgusted by it, but collects it anyway.
Yeah, and that was all the whole him collecting the slime and
ad-libbed,
flowing it in his face, and all one take. One they didn't do another. It's like amazing, just one take, and that was it. Print it, done.
It is incredible. It really is. And then, of course, and this is a scene I really like. This is that they find a ghost, right? They find it's like a librarian woman torso head looks floating,
like a sort of Victorian looking lady. Yeah.
And I think the thing I like about it is that it's a really realistic reaction from them all, where it's like they've been studying this phenomena and they've been looking and searching for ghosts, But not only if it's not like they found a bit of EVP or whatever. It's like there's a real ghost stood right there. It's
literally floating right in front of them.
And I think it would have been tempting to have made it like, you know, they know what they're doing. But the reaction from them is like, holy shit. Like, oh my God. There's an actual ghost there.
It's a complete, like, what the hell do we do now?
Oh, shit. We were right, but I don't know what to do now.
And I love the way he says, can I just talk to you guys for a minute? And I love the way he grabs Ray's ear and just pulls him into the sort of side of the aisle.
We also continue the library gag when she tells them to shush. The ghost turns around and tells them to shush because they're being too loud.
First of all, he says, "Well, somebody should talk to her."
Oh,
so they all
right.
look.
Yes,
they all look at each other, and then they all look at Venkman, and Venkman's like, "Right, okay, so I'm going to go talk to the lady then." And he goes out and basically starts talking to her. And she shushes them, and then there's like, "Okay, now what do we do?" And then Ray says,
"Just shout, get her."
I've got a plan.
Yeah.
And they get to the thing and go, get her! And obviously, a massive transformation comes over the ghost, and she becomes this sort of big, like...
Presumably the thing that scared the librarian in the first place.
Yeah, buck-tooth, sort of weird-looking sort of apparition.
Animatronic apparition, yeah.
It's a really good puppet, actually.
It looks amazing.
The original puppet they were going to use was too scary. So they basically made a new one, and the one that they didn't use ended up being the Jerry Dandridge in bat form in Fright Night.
And that's amazing. I never actually knew that. But I can see why, because that would have been proper scary. Like that is, it's a real creepy design. That
it's a nasty little thing. I love the
it's great.
Bat thing in that movie. I mean, I love that movie anyway. But
yeah, good stuff.
So,
and of course they flee.
And the librarian said, "Did you see something? Did you see something?" He's like, "Yeah, we'll get back to you."
Yeah, we'll get back to you. Yeah. And then, of course, they return back to the university where they find that the dean is basically ordering people to box their stuff
that,
up.
you get that really brilliant little sort of thing where he says to him, "Get her," and he's laughing. He's like, "That was your whole plan."
Oh yeah.
And they're outside, he's sort of drinking, and he says that he's talking about what they're going to do and how they're going to. And I think, is this when Egon says that according to these readings, I think there's a good chance that we could actually trap these things.
Yes, I think he does. Yeah, he says, I think there is a good chance we can actually... Because I think him and Ray have been working on a method of trapping ghosts.
Yeah.
And based on the readings that Egon got from the actual ghost, he believes they can trap it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they head to the university and find that their stuff is being packed up by the dean, who basically tells them... Yeah, he can't wait.
What a terrible people they are.
Well, he's specifically Venkman. He's specifically Venkman. He's like, "You are a bad scientist, Dr. Venkman." Which was great. And then, of course, they leave, and Venkman then, they're sharing a bottle, and Venkman says, I think this everything happens for a reason. This happened for a reason, and we're destined to go into business together. So
says, but how are we going to? It's like, this is going to cost a fortune. How are we going to do this? Because I don't know how we'll find the money. And then you cut to them coming out of the bank. It's like, you're never going to regret this, Ray. It's like, that was my parents' house. It's like... And I love the whole time you've got Ray and Peter walking along, and Peter's like trying to convince Ray how he's done the good thing, and behind them you've just got Egon like tapping numbers into a calculator or something, and then he turns around and he says about the interest.
It's like 90,000 a year.
Yeah, it's like the interest alone is going to be crippling. It's like thanks Egon, that's really helpful.
Why didn't you say that half an hour ago when I was getting this crippling third mortgage? But yeah, of course they Venkman doesn't give a shit and just passes off. He's like, everyone's got 3 mortgages these days, it's fine.
Everybody's got 3 mortgages.
And so they decide to create the Ghostbusters, the paranormal investigation and capture of ghost service, and they head to the fire station, an old abandoned fire station, and they're going to look at it. It's an absolute shithole. And in fact, Egon says it should be condemned.
It should be condemned. The electrics are inadequate for our needs. It's like mold in the thing. The foundations are crumbling.
Yeah, it doesn't even say like the structure is like literally rotting away.
And then Ray comes down on the
he's like, oh my god, is this a real?
You should try this. This is great.
and then you got this wonderful shot where Ray is like. Ray is a child. He's just a happy child. Yeah. Like you said, he's the heart of the movie. He's an absolute child. He's absolutely overjoyed at just the fact that there's a fireman's pole in this fire station is enough for him to be like, sold. And he's like, we need to buy it. We should stay here tonight.
Stay here tonight,
But what I love about this shot is then...
I love the woman's face is brilliant.
Yeah, the woman's face, but also...
He's basically just told her, fuck off, really. Peter's basically said, like, fuck this shit. We are not having this.
He said it's overpriced, and then Egon had the whole speech. But what I love is she's now like smiling, like, yeah, you're gonna get it, right? You're gonna get it. And Venkman looks at Egon, and the whole time, up to the point, and including the point where Venkman says yes, Egon's just shaking his head. It's just like, no, this is a terrible idea. And they just they agree to, I guess, buy or rent, not sure which. Well, I'm assuming they own it, but
presume buy, because it's probably New York prices would have been cheaper back in '84, but
still wouldn't have been cheap.
Yeah, but they are in a shithole neighborhood apparently.
They say it's like Beirut, don't they, or something?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think it was. I think apartments were actually relatively cheap in those areas back then.
Sure. Well, they said it's overpriced.
To bloody live there, And the station is 2 stations.
Mm-hmm.
So the outside is in New York, and almost all of the interior shots in this movie are all in LA.
Mm-hmm.
So there are 2 actual buildings for that one building.
Mm-hmm. So yes, and then obviously they develop the containment machine. It's plugged into this nuclear powered capture machine in the basement, and they start their business.
Yeah.
We then are introduced to Dana Barrett.
Mm-hmm.
Who I love this. By the way, I'd never noticed this before. Things you notice now. You know, like in Empire Strikes Back, where the interior of the speeder, you can see through it. It's like semi-transparent. When you can see like the background where they've overlaid one thing on top of another, and that happens here. And I'd never noticed it before with the gargoyle over the road. It's a great shot of the gargoyle over the road, but you can see the cars going through it. Like it's like semi-transparent as they go through it. Where obviously the process they use to
they use a lot of matte paintings on this.
They do, but they didn't for that, which is a bit odd. So. Yes, we're introduced to Dana Barrett, who is returning to her apartment. And I believe we meet Tully here as well, don't we, for the first time? We meet Louis Tully here?
Yes,
as she's walking in, isn't she? Because he's just trying to be really nice, and he says, you shouldn't have had your TV on so loud while you were out. And I tried to turn it off from the outside, but I couldn't turn it off, so then I turned my TV up really loud so that they'd think there was a problem with our TVs.
Yeah.
Logic.
Bless him.
And Dana, you can tell Dana's just... I mean, he's trying to be really sweet, but he's well over the top, and you can tell that she's just had enough of this, because it's like, must be every day.
Yeah, every time she walks past his apartment.
Well, there's a shot later.
Clearly comes out and
yeah, because there's a shot later, which I love, which is when Venkman's gone in to see Dana's apartment. And she kicks him out, and as soon as he hears Venkman leave, as soon as the door closes, Tully immediately comes outside of his door, and then when he sees it's him, he tries to get back in his apartment again. So he obviously, every time he hears the door go, he's going out in the hallway to try and catch Dana.
And it's a running gag, so I'm sure he locks himself out every time as well.
Yeah, every time. Yeah, he's locked out every time.
Well, two of the things I love here is one. Sigourney Weaver wanted to do this because at this point she was only known for serious roles, and she really wanted to do a comedy. So she was like, she really fought for this, and apparently she was chosen because in her audition, she basically acted like a dog. So they were like, well, okay, if she's willing to do that, then she must want the job really that much.
And weirdly, she wanted to do it because she hadn't done a comedy before. She's now in one of the best comedies ever written in Ghostbusters.
She's in a lot of great comedy.
She plays the straight woman in this. She's not a comedic character in it.
No.
She's in a comedy, but she's very much the straight man here, which is kind of interesting.
And Lewis was originally written for John Candy.
I can totally see that working.
Yeah, well, he didn't know how to play him. He had so he came up with this weird thing. He wanted to play him German, right. and he wanted lots of dogs or something. And they were like, no, well, we can't really have you have lots of dogs because we've already got like a dog theme coming. So you can't really...
we don't want to.
And so eventually he sort of passed on it, and they found Mick Romanus to sort of do the role, and it was like, and so I would like to see the weird German version of the Lewis character.
I'm kind of intrigued by it.
I'm not sure how that would have fit in. It would have been a bit odd.
Yeah. But in any case, Dana slams the door on Lewis Tully,
like mid-sentence.
She's like, bye. But we've all known people like that. They just keep talking and talking. You have to just kind of edge your way back at the door. Still talking.
Yeah.
So she then enters her apartment, and she puts down her shopping, and the eggs start cooking themselves on the table.
Also, we get the foreshadowing Mr. Stay Puft next to the eggs.
We do. We get a packet of Stay Puft, and we'll get back to that later. And then of course she opens the fridge. And I can't remember. We don't see what's in the fridge, do we? We just see her reaction to it.
No, we do. We see the sort of the pyramidal.
Oh yes, you're right. Yeah, we do.
Thing.
We do.
And we see one of the terror dogs,
which is a wonderful design.
Literally opens its mouth and says "Zool."
I love those terror dogs. They're such a cool design.
They are awesome. It's still one of my favourite creature designs. They're just they're so sort of simple and sort of, they are kind of like berry dog sort of things. They're really cool.
They really work though, I think. So of course she then goes to the Ghostbusters. I think she's like their first kind of customer. Or at least the first person that turns up. She turns up there. I think we're introduced
to Janine.
Yeah,
we're introduced to Janine, and he's like basically she's there reading People magazine, I think it is.
Yeah,
and he's like for God's sake, do something, type something. We're paying you for this.
Yeah.
He's like, you're freaking me out with the bug eyes, and then he like goes beyond the thing and goes, Janine, I'm sorry about the bug-eyed thing. I absolutely adore Annie Potts.
She's
Potts
amazing.
Fantastic.
She's amazing.
I love her in Pretty in Pink, where she plays Iona, which is she's fantastic in that. And she's one of those another one of those sort of character actors that always plays, like, she's played so many vastly different sort of characters.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. This is for me her, like, kind of, I guess because it was a defining movie of my childhood. This is a defining performance of hers for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're introduced to Janine as Dana comes in into the firehouse, and basically,
and I like she walks in and you see Ray there, like completely in, like almost entirely inside the engine of the car. Oh, we forgot about the car as well, when he turns up with the car.
Oh yeah, and he's basically like listing the amount of things wrong with it.
Yeah, he says, how much was it? Was it like 1,400 or something? And he says, well, what does it need work? He says, shocks. It needs this, it needs that, it needs that. It's like, okay, so it was probably just cheaper to buy a new car then.
I know, but it's a damn stylish ambulance.
It's awesome. I love that car.
It's amazing. So,
and apparently Dan Aykroyd's a real car nut as well. Apparently he's got loads of like classic cars, so he really loves this car. Apparently,
yeah,
I don't think he owns it. Which is
no, he doesn't. No. There's a video on YouTube of people restoring the original car, and they have him look at it afterwards, and he sort of talks all the facts about it. But yeah, it's so she turns up, and she basically he immediately Venkman sees her and comes running out to kind of be the first guy to meet her.
And apparently that jump he nearly didn't make it.
Oh really?
So he jumps over the sort of little partition thing.
He does, yeah.
And if you listen, well, you see it as well. His heel hit the door, and then he was like, millimeters away from eating dirt, basically.
So she recounts what happened in her apartment.
Yeah.
And of course, Venkman I
love that they're all there, sort of around her, looking at, testing her reactions and things, and they've got her wired up. And I love the idea, which you see later on when they're testing Lewis, but the idea that almost all of their equipment is pretty much all self-made. They're all
it's all been designed presumably by Egon.
Yeah, exactly. It's all been basically cobbled together by the two of them. And I love that, like, she's saying, what it could be. It's like, it could be like past life experience intruding. It could be like this. It could be, and immediately, she's, well, I don't believe in any of that. And immediately, Peter's like, well, I don't either. And it's like,
and they both look at him as well, like, what?
No, it's like, we know you're a dick.
But of course, he then says, I'm going to go to her apartment, and he says, I'll go check her out, her apartment out.
Yeah, because of course he is.
Yeah.
And I think this is where you get the first mention of Tobin's spirit guide as well.
It is,
which I mean, I don't know whether. Well, I don't know whether you were a real Ghostbusters fan. I presume you probably were. Yeah, which is like almost every episode of the real Ghostbusters mentions Tobin's spirit guide.
Yeah. So he heads to the apartment, and he's a real creepy fuck in the apartment with her.
Completely creepy.
Really creepy. And basically, like, he looks around the apartment for like a brief moment. He looks at the eggs and he looks at the fridge, checks out her bedroom, and she says, well, nothing happened in there. And he's like, oh, what a shame.
I do like when he opens the fridge and he says, oh my God.
Yeah.
Look at all the junk food in here.
Like, do you actually eat all this? And of course, then he basically, she's like saying, look, I saw something in the fridge. I'm telling you, it wasn't like this when I looked when I looked in there, because she hasn't gone back for days, is what she says. And he basically then just immediately comes onto her.
Yep.
To the point that she's just like grossed out by him and kicks him out. And I love the line when he's like, I think we've both got the same problem. And she's like, yes, we do.
Yes, you. We do, you. And she says, you're like a game. She says, you're an odd man. You're like a game show host.
Yeah.
Which apparently she ad-libbed, because apparently originally it was supposed to be a car salesman.
Well, I think, oddly enough, I think car salesman might have worked better, purely because it foreshadows him basically selling everything to the mayor later.
Yeah, maybe.
Because it's pretty much what he does at the end. He is basically like spinning it to make the mayor, take his deal. But yeah, so she says he's like a game show host, which he kind of is the way he behaves in this movie. And then of course
that whole scene as well, all the stuff that he does, I don't think any of it was scripted.
Oh no,
it's all literally just Bill Murray walking into the room and doing what Bill Murray does.
And I legitimately think most scenes are like that. I think most of them. I think the piano one must have been planned somewhat, because it's framed on the piano. So like, I guess he did it, and then they filmed it afterwards properly. Maybe like, I guess they come into the room, do their bit, and then like, okay, we'll do that for real now.
Yeah,
and kind of follow their lead. But I feel like a lot of this movie was ad-libbed, really, because it just they're so talented. All of this cast that I think most of it feels ad-libbed in the best way possible. When you've got very talented comedians that are capable of ad-libbing.
And there was a thing that Ramus was saying about how they worked together and how, like, even though they've all got really great lines and stuff, no one's stepping over each other, no, not
at all.
Because apparently the way that they used to work was literally you strive to make the other guy look good, and then everybody looks good.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and SNL is like a team.
Yeah, exactly. So, he said that's how they used to work when they were on Second City and SNL. So that's what they did. You make the other person look good, and you all look good. So there is you hear so many sort of stories about, like, in these movies of, like, they're all stepping over each other, they're all, like, trying to one up each other's lines, and they're not. They're sort of all comfortably doing what they do, and they're all letting each other do what they do. So you get this just brilliant atmosphere of great one-liners and weird little quirky movements and things.
Yeah, absolutely, and it really works. Certainly here, anyway. So, of course, she kicks him out, and I don't blame her. She kicks him out, and then we get the wonderful bit with Tully, who hears the door close, immediately comes out, like I said, clearly looking for Dana, and then can't get back in his apartment because he's locked out. Like you said, I think it is every single time he leaves his apartment, he can't get back in. It's like one of a number of running gags.
We also forgot the other one when we first introduced him, when he mentions that he's having a party on Friday.
Yes,
and he invites her, so... You've got that as well, sort of coming for later.
Mm-hmm. But she kicks him out, and then they get a real job for sure.
Well, yeah, I love that. There's a brilliant scene of the three of them sat around eating Chinese food. And he's like, "Oh, I'm going to need to take some petty cash out to get to take her out. We're going to want to keep on top of her, sort of thing." And Ray says, well, this spectacular feast is all that's left of the petty cash, and you're like, they're completely fucked.
Yeah, but as luck would have it, Janine gets a call.
And Janine's like, yes, of course they're serious.
Yeah, but she's so blown away that there's someone actually she's like, you did?
Yeah. and I love that she says, oh, they'll be very discreet.
Yeah. Well, I guess at that point she doesn't even know. Because they've not even tried. She's probably not even seen the proton packs yet, because they've just been, working on it in the basement and not actually used it. So I guess she has no idea. But yeah, so the Sedgwick Hotel has been having a problem with a ghost, and the Ghostbusters have actually been hired to remove it. So they
I know, as soon as they come through the door, it's like he's like, anybody seen a ghost? It's like, yeah, very discreet.
Yeah. And of course they walk in. They look like they're wearing flamethrowers. It's like they.
I love it when they get to the lift, and there's that old guy with the hat and the cigar, and he says, "Well, are you supposed to be some kind of cosmonaut?" And he says, "Exterminators." He says, "That must be a big cockroach." And he says, "It'll bite your head off." And they get into the lift. He says, "Come in." He says, "I'll take the next one." It's like...
Yeah. So of course they head up and they start using their equipment.
This is one of the best scenes.
It's one of the most memorable. This scene.
He says, I think we should, it's like races about, we should have tested this. I blame myself. And Peter says, I blame you too.
Yeah.
And because basically we're all wearing an unregistered nuclear accelerator on our back.
And then they all step apart in the lift.
This is my favourite thing about that whole scene. So they're in that lift. Egon, who is the most intelligent guy around, switches this thing off. And then immediately starts stepping back, and he knows that it isn't going to matter where
it doesn't matter. Yeah, you're not going to escape. You're in a lift.
It's literally just the fact that his animal brain is going, must get away. So they're literally pulling her back, even though they know that if it goes off, everything will be completely obliterated.
Yeah, and it ties in. It ties into later when. Venkman looks to Egon to try and think and explain the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and Egon says to him, like, I'm sorry, I'm like terrified beyond the point of reasonable thought or whatever.
I'm too terrified beyond the point of rational thought.
And it's kind of the same here, where he's just like, fear takes over him, even though his rational brain knows that they're fucked if anything goes wrong. You know, I mean, you'd be screwed if like a hand grenade went off in the lift. Like you're talking about 3 nuclear powered like. So of course they go up and they start looking for the ghost.
Well, first of all, they come out of the lift and they end up nuking.
So
the chambermaid's poor cart full of like toilet rolls and
I love her reaction though. She's not like even scared. She's just like, "What the hell are you doing?" she's like how dare you?
True blue New Yorker. She's not phased. She's just literally like, "What the fuck are you doing? Why have you blown up my car?
Yeah, why are you disrupting my work?" And then they basically say sorry, and they're like, "Oh well, it works."
Yeah, we should split up because we'll do more damage that way.
And split up they do, with Ray briefly meeting the green. Becomes Slimer, but yes, known as Spud at this point.
It was originally, I think they originally called it Onion Head, and it didn't get basically the Slimer moniker until Real Ghostbusters.
Yeah, but everyone knows it's Slimer now. It's just
it's complete. I mean, because it's so ingrained that it's Slimer that you know you don't even think of it as anything else. And of course, Dan Aykroyd has said that this is John Belushi. It's his interpretation of John Belushi and his character in is it Bluto in Animal House. Because originally, when he wrote the original script, Belushi was going to be Peter.
Yes.
And then, of course, he tragically died before they, obviously they could do it. So they got him. I always think about like how different it would have been, because they're two entirely, although they were like, they have similar styles in some respects. They're very different comedians. Not Aykroyd, Belushi and Murray. So would he have been less creepy but more intense?
I think it would have been more, for want of a better term, New Yorker-y.
Yeah,
I think he would have been more of like that blue collar New York kind of guy. I kind of see, you can kind of see him doing that more than Murray's kind of laid back, sarcastic. I think he would have been more in your face, But
definitely more intense.
I would have loved to have seen that just as a version, just to be like, I wonder what he would have done. I wonder what he would have planned to have done in those scenes,
Yeah.
But I guess as it's all ad-libbed, it would have probably been a very different movie.
Yeah, well, I imagine the relationship between him and Dana would have been different.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
For a start. So, yeah, that would have been... it's just one of those, these somewhere there's a universe where he's Peter Venkman, It would have been interesting to see.
So, of course... Ray briefly sees it before it disappears.
Well, he tries to he blasts it, doesn't he?
Yeah, it gets away.
Gets away, goes to the wall.
And then, of course, Venkman sees it, and he calls Ray on the walkie-talkie. He's like, Ray, and Ray's like, I just saw it.
It's an ugly-looking Spud, isn't it? It's like,
I think it can hear you,
Ray.
Yeah. And then, of course, it flies at him and quote unquote slimes him. And then of course Ray catches up with him as it's escaped, and Ray catches up with him.
Again, it's another of Ray's amazing reactions. It's like,
that's great.
That's so great. Actual physical contact.
Yeah.
Like that. Never mind that he could have been hurt or anything.
And then he radios Egon, and Egon's like, "Great, save some for me.
Get me a sample."
Yeah. And then of course they get a call that it's
Egon says he's just gone into the ballroom.
Yeah. So they all head to the ballroom and they lock the door behind them.
Yeah.
And they kind of start talking how they're going to bring this thing down, how they're going to catch it. And this is kind of the scene where we see how the Ghostbusters, this is where they really learn how to use their equipment.
Yeah.
They've made it all. This is their first field test.
Yeah, and this is where you get also the warning about crossing the streams.
Yes, yeah.
Which it's like why is that? And he says, imagine every cell in your body being like dying at like in exact moment. It's like total particle reversal or something. It's like shit. Okay, so crossing the stream is bad.
Which because Murray says define bad, so Egon literally does define exactly what will happen to them. So they noisily clear space for the trap. With Venkman doing that thing, which I've always wanted to do, by the way.
Same here.
It's one of those things I've always wanted to do since I was a kid.
And I love that he pulls it, everything crashes, and he says, the flowers are still standing. Which
again must have been ad-libbed. Like whatever was left on the table afterwards, he would have just ad-libbed whatever that was.
And I love that they shoot the chandelier and the chandelier comes down.
Yeah.
It's like, and of course, that was my bad. That was on me. And Peter says, "It's okay. The table broke its fall."
Yeah. And of course, outside we see the hotel manager trying to get security to open the door. He's like, "What is going on in there?" He's reassuring the person that's coming. She says, like, by the time your guests arrive, it'll be open. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. But then while he's saying this, we can hear everything crashing and smashing next door. So of course they use the packs, and they actually catch their first ghost.
And I love there's again you get this little stuff with Egon. You get the like one Egon uses the thing, and he's just completely overwhelmed by it, and he's just like nuking the shit out of the bar.
Yeah.
And he's going, whoa, nice shooting Tex. It's like, okay. And then when they've got hold of the when they've got hold of Slimer and they're bringing him down, and Egon says to Peter, shorten your stream, I don't want my face burnt off.
Yeah. So
just little things that are even as a kid, like they're so hilarious.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, watching it as a kid, like, they go into a ballroom and smash the shit out of it. What kid doesn't want to go into a ballroom and smash the shit out of stuff?
Yeah, totally. You can hire rooms to do that now, right?
I know, you can, yeah. I do like the idea of it, I must admit.
On the wrong day, I'd like it, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I imagine it's very cathartic.
So they catch it, and, they
I let it come out.
Yeah, they come out and...
One of my favourite things so he comes through the door and he says, we came, we saw, we kicked its ass. Now I remember seeing this on TV like years and years ago, and that line they changed to we came, we saw, we caught it.
Brilliant.
Which I thought was brilliant. It's like, okay, that's good. I loved it when they used to change the words and not just cut them out. Because some of them were brilliant, like Mother Humper and Muddy Funster and stuff like that, when they used to change things. Well, I used to find that fascinating.
I think they still do. I think it's more of an airline thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Than anything.
And there's also a thing that that Harold Ramis was saying when on the scene when they first come into the hotel. And they're walking down the sort of the foyer with the manager, and they're explaining about stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Harold Ramis said, he said the funny thing, when they pan and scanned it for TV, they always cut him off. So on TV, you only ever see the two of them. You never see Egon. So he said, I always get cut out of this scene.
And of course, the hotel manager is aghast at what's gone on, but I guess he's happy that it's done until Peter starts talking costs, and at which point the hotel manager says he will not pay.
Egon and that, and he's like wondering how much he should charge, and Egon like puts four fingers up on his face, and we are doing a special, is it
on entrapment? I think
on entrapment of the beast, which will cost a further $1,000. he says $5,000. I had no idea it because I won't pay it. It's like, well, that's fine. We'll just put it back in there. And I love Ray just immediately turns around. It's like, no, we'll pay it. And he just gives him the thing and they walk out. It's brilliant.
Yeah. And then, of course, they are in business. Should be pointed out as well, I noticed in this movie, they say that Slimer, they say he is a Slimer.
Yeah.
So I think it's like a type of ghost that they designate a Slimer in the movie. Whereas in the TV show, it is just, he's Slimer. That's his actual name. Yeah, so they are Ghostbusters now, and we see kind of, TV ads of them saying, they're doing one of those awful infomercials. And then we see various, times where they've helped. And we get a very realistic, which I thought this, I was like, yeah, you would think that, where you get, I think it's Larry King saying
yep.
All these Ghostbusters helping
Larry
out.
King's first TV role, apparently.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah,
first movie role.
And he says, the Ghostbusters have been catching ghosts all over the city. Some people think that they're causing it, and I thought, yeah, you would, though, wouldn't you? Because for ever, ghosts have never been this kind of a problem, and now all of a sudden, ghosts are everywhere. But even by the end, with all of the Gozer and stuff, I'd be like, did they somehow cause this? Because there was never a ghost problem until they turned up. Well, and now it's a huge thing.
It's what Peck theorizes. It?
And I don't think he's
like they turn up
with
hallucinogens or something. They turn up and they with some sort of gas and they basically make people see things.
But even when it's real, even when it's at the end, it's clearly real and happening. You'd be like, but you guys must have escalated this, because this was never an issue until we had a team of Ghostbusters, and now New York City is getting smashed up by this giant monster. This, and you're messing around with nuclear power and stuff.
Exactly. And you've got all these nuclear devices. You've got all this completely dangerous thing in the basement of the fire station. It's the thing is Peck's not wrong.
No, he's just an asshole.
He's just an asshole.
Yeah. Although, to be fair, in this scene, doesn't help because he is quite polite when he initially comes in. Walter Peck is quite polite, but Venkman is an asshole immediately to him, and says, you didn't say the magic word, and then he says, please may I see? And he's like, no. And Venkman basically tells him to fuck off. Venkman goads him until the point where Walter says, I think you're con artists, and I think it's dangerous whatever you've got down there. And he basically says, I can come back with a warrant, and Venkman says, go get your warrant, and I'll sue your ass for wrongful. I can't remember what he says, but wrongful something.
Wrongful persecution or something.
Something like that. Yeah, something like that. And so it's all his fault. And then
I like the what's his name? Is it something Atherton?
I'm not sure.
William Atherton. So he's apparently
always
Ivan
plays
Reitman.
an asshole. Always.
Him, and there's another character later on who we see briefly who's Die Hard Connection. But he said Ivan Reitman was saying that he met him a couple of years after this, and he thought he'd be he'd welcome him and say he's they think, and he wasn't. He was furious with him,
right?
And he said because of that role, every time he went into a bar, people would want to start fighting him.
Oh my God.
He said people would throw abuse at him. He said he was walking along and a busload of kids drove by and shouted at him, and he turned and smiled at them, and they all shouted out "dickless," and it's it kind of ruined him. He just couldn't go anywhere without people thinking he was an asshole. So he was really upset with Ivan Reitman that he did this. He'd made him this complete dickhead.
Yeah,
it's you can imagine that going into a pub, and every time someone sees you, it's you're that Walter Peck guy. It's no, it's I'm an actor. It's please don't kill me. It's
yeah, totally. So I also noticed that, watching this, you realize this movie doesn't I think this movie wisely decides what it's going to do and what it isn't going to do, and what it's going to tackle and not tackle. And I think it very wisely ignores the fact that ghosts are dead people. And it just kind of focuses on the ghosts are pests and they're doing bad things and we need to stop them. Because, like, at no point in this movie is anyone like, they caught Grandma's ghost and now she's in this prison.
There is when they on the montage bit.
Oh yeah, in brief montage.
One of the covers to one of the magazines has a headline along the lines of is it do ghosts have civil rights?
Yeah. But that's the thing, isn't it? And they wisely don't go into it, because it is like, that would be a very different movie if we started getting into, like, you know, ghosts are people too, and you're basically imprisoning them in this thing forever, for all eternity.
If you would have got into that stuff, which maybe they would have in the original.
I mean, it might have been an interesting movie, but not.
But
this
movie. I think it would have been more horrific.
Yes, that's the thing. It would have
been way more horrific, and I think you certainly wouldn't have got a PG if you would have started. You know,
this movie is.
It's hard to imagine that this movie's got a PG as it is, because there is some serious things in this movie
there really is
that are slightly dubious.
But I think it wisely ignores any of the kind of more serious side. It basically sees ghosts as pests, rats.
Well, I think
they're exterminators, basically.
Ivan Reitman was saying about when they made how they made the movie is that they slowly eased you into the ghost stuff in a way that was like, your point of view characters are professors, so that already
they know what they're doing.
Sort of thing. So you have that sort of slow reveal of believability, and the slow sort of they're not just, this isn't just happening to just normal people. They're at least have experience, as it were, or they're trained. I mean, they're not, but you know what I mean. So they do a really good job of sort of, I think, balancing that the sort of comedic and the sort of the horrific.
But of course, they have become, at least in New York, famous for catching ghosts, and very, very busy. We see that Ray is absolutely exhausted, and they're looking for a fourth member, which is when we get Winston joining the team. Who, like I said, he basically represents the audience. I think.
And I think
he's new to all of it. He's not a professor. He's just looking for a job.
Ernie, I do feel slightly sorry for Ernie Hudson, because he got a bit stiffed here, because originally this part was written for Eddie Murphy. And Eddie Murphy passed on it. So they basically, they sent out for auditions and stuff, and obviously Ernie Hudson got it. And by that point they cut down a lot more, because I think originally he was going to be introduced quite early. He would, and he would have been in it a lot more, and he would have got a lot more to do. And I think Ernie Hudson sees this is a bit of a sort of poison chalice, because on one hand it sort of made him the star he is, but on another thing it was like it wasn't the role that
he signed up for,
should have been. So and he is fucking awesome in this movie.
He's wonderful.
He's only in it like for brief stuff, but when he is in it, he's really bloody good. When you consider the fact that he didn't know any of these guys, he'd never worked with any of these guys like everybody else had. So he's completely sort of, an outsider within that group. But I think that also
that's
helps.
How it works in the movie. That's how it works. That's why it works in the movie. Because he wasn't part of that clique. He very much feels like the outsider coming in, and it's very easy for the audience to see through his eyes. This whole situation. My favorite bit of his is later in the movie when they get arrested, and he's just like, I just work for these assholes. Like, nothing to do with me. Like, I just took a job in the paper.
And I like that Janine's, our introduction is Janine going for all the stuff. Do you believe in this? And he's just like, if there's a steady paycheck, I'll believe anything you want.
Yeah, which I think we could all agree with that. I think I'd be like, sure.
Originally, the introduction was supposed to tell you more about him. It was supposed to tell you that he was like ex-military, and he was I think he was a medic or something and stuff. So he's got all these like things that would make him really desirable for this role. But they basically just
kind of prefer him as just an everyman, because I like that because they don't even interview him, which I really like. Like, Ray's just so exhausted, they just walk in and Ray's like, "Yeah, you got the job, fine, whatever.
Yeah, here you go.
Let me show you the trap. Come on."
Yeah.
I just like the idea that by that point they were just so burnt out. They were like, "We just need someone."
Yeah.
Just anyone.
And do we get the dream sequence here as well?
The weird, awkward ghost blowjob sequence.
Yeah,
I think it is around here. It's when they're really busy and things are going on. So I guess some ghosts are allowed. Apparently,
yeah. I think some. Well, I mean, that's in that thing. It's a dream sequence, but again, there is a whole sequence which I don't know whether it's on YouTube or anything, but it was on the extras on the DVD, on the Blu-ray I've got, and it's basically him and Winston go to an old fort, to check out a ghost, and while they're there, Ray is in this room and he puts on he puts on the jacket and he's reading French things and this French book. It's like, even though he doesn't understand French, and then he falls asleep and the ghost turns up, and Ray's like knocking on the door and it's like going, "No, you were right in there, and you're right in there," and he's like, "Yeah, come back later. Everything's fine in here. Come back later." So there's a whole it wasn't initially a dream sequence. It was a whole bit, and I'm guessing they thought maybe it was a bit too much.
I think it would be a bit too much. It's really, I think it feels kind of awkward in the movie, to be honest.
As it is, it's a bit weird.
Yeah.
Now I don't think it was. I certainly don't remember that scene when I was a kid. So I'm guessing it was initially cut out.
Yeah, probably.
And probably added in later versions.
You may well be right. But yes, so yeah, of course then, yeah, as we said, Walter Peck has his initial meeting with Venkman, gets told to basically piss off, and Egon then warns that the containment unit is nearing capacity, and that he's worked out that the city is becoming a supernatural hotspot for some reason, although it's kind of a mystery at this point.
Yeah, it is a mystery at this point, and I like the Twinkie explanation is quite good as well.
Yes,
he says, imagine this Twinkie being, was it 30 miles wide or something?
That's a big Twinkie.
Yeah.
Yes, but then of course Venkman goes to meet Dana, except it's not Dana anymore.
No, we get the first of all we get the scene where he goes to meet Dana in the park.
Oh yes, of course, with the other cellist, is he?
The
other cellist, yeah.
And he says about he explains what they found about Zool and Gozer.
He's an ancient demigod.
Yeah. It's like, well, what's he doing in my fridge?
Yeah.
And I think he's slightly more charming here.
He's toned it down a bit. Yes,
he's still a bit creepy, but at least he's a little more charming. And I think she sort of succumbs to him a little bit more, and she agrees to go on a date with him on that Friday or Thursday, whenever it was.
Something like that. I mean, it's kind of half a date, half a tell me what you know about everything.
She comes home. She's talking to her mum, I think, on the phone, and she's saying that she's going on a date with a Ghostbuster, and like, yes, the guys on the telly,
those idiots on the TV,
and she sits in her chair, sort of exhausted, and then out of the corner of her eye, she can see that the kitchen door is glowing, and then you get that terrifying, like this I definitely remember being scared shitless of when I was a kid. The hands come up through the chair and they grab her.
Yeah.
And one gets a real good feel of her boob as well. Well, they're there, and the chair turns and she basically gets dragged into the kitchen and the door slams behind her. So you get that. And yeah, that's a really good scene.
This is the thing. It really does. Horror scenes in this movie are treated. The horror in this movie is treated seriously, and that's what I really think works in this movie. It's a comedy, but it's also a horror in the same way that, like, American Werewolf in London it's another good example of like a horror comedy. Obviously, American Werewolf's more horror than comedy, but they both have comedy, right. But they both take the horror seriously. And the horror scenes in this, like the library and like this scene, are taken very seriously, and it's treated like a horror movie.
Yeah, which I think is a shame that because of the cartoon and stuff, they obviously wanted to appeal to kids more. So the second one is so tonally different.
Well, the second movie is not a great movie, I don't think.
Really.
No, I like it in bits, but it's not.
There's some really interesting stuff in it, but you can tell that tone is so, different. It's so much more kidified. Like it's just not as good a movie. It's just as simple as that, really.
Yeah, I mean, controlling the Statue of Liberty with an NES controller and stuff. Okay. I mean, that's a funny gag and stuff.
I hated the whole slime guns as well. Yeah. It was like, what's going on here?
It's fun, but it's piloting the Statue of Liberty is miles away from this movie.
Yeah,
in the same way that shortly, when the containment thing's taken down and the ghosts are free, we get this wonderful montage of the ghosts wreaking havoc in New York, whereas in the sequel it's so much more ridiculous. Like, the Titanic's back in town, and like, my god, really? Like, and also this is happening in New York. Why is the Titanic here? Because the Titanic's out in the middle of the fucking ocean. So okay,
it's finishing its journey, isn't it? Of course.
Yes, so but then the occurrence is in New York. The Titanic is not in New York.
Yes,
so,
I see what you mean. Yeah, that's true.
Do you know what I mean? It's kind of a bit weird.
I do love that shot of the Titanic and all the passengers.
It's a nice shot, but it just kind of says to me, it kind of shows to me how much like this movie is it does it just right, and the second movie just takes everything too far. It's like, we have to go way overboard in the second one, go way further, and I don't think it always really works. I think it's much more effective here, and like you said, it is more child friendly, but yeah, this film treats its horror scenes seriously, and I really like that. But yes, so Venkman turns up to meet Dana, but of course it is Zool, and he's told that there is no Dana, only Zool.
No Dana, Zool. And she's actually pretty terrifying.
She is.
When she's got her teeth bared and she's talking through her teeth, it's like, wow, that's
kind of creepy with the voice and stuff. Yeah.
And I do like it is again weird and creepy, but it's still funny. When she says, "I want you inside me," and he says, "Yeah, no, I think there's already two people in there already. I think that's enough."
Yeah, it's like he's a creepy fuck, but he does have a line.
Yeah,
and I guess that's the line. She is out of her mind, not even herself anymore, and potentially a servant of a demigod.
Yeah, scary but incredibly sexy. I mean, she looks fantastic. I like when she opens the door and she says, "Are you the keymaster?" And he's like, "No," and she shuts the door and he's like, "That was weird." And he knocks again. He's like, "Are you the keymaster?" Yes. And then of course she sort of floats above she gets this sort of like, he says she's going to be in trouble if he doesn't let me speak to Dana, and she starts floating above her, and sort of spinning around and stuff. And that was all practical.
It's a great shot as well.
It's a brilliant shot. I like apparently there's a story about her. So she had to have a full body cast for that scene.
Yeah.
And apparently the guy who was doing the plastering was like very tenuously sort of like a bit worried about where he was putting his hands, and she literally grabbed his hand, stuck him on her boobs, and says, "Just get on with it." It's like, we're all here to do a job. Just get on with it. Let's, and I like that. It's like just shows how awesome Sigourney Weaver is. I mean, we know that anyway, but
Yeah.
So you get you then get the party going on
next door,
just down the corridor.
And I love this party. I absolutely love. Lewis Tully's party is amazing. He like literally, as people come in, he's talking about all of their like private accounts and like the debt they're in, and like all. It's just incredible.
He's like going into receivership.
He's like this guy's business is going into receivership.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure he doesn't want all these people knowing about his business. That's just really fucking weird. And I love the fact that he says, "Oh, I didn't invite friends. I invited my clients because I can have it as a tax write-off."
Yeah.
If it's all clients, it's like, you are a weird little man.
He's a very strange man. And of course he throws someone's coat into presumably the room he's using to store coats. And it hits one of the.
And I love the big blonde woman that he dances with.
Yeah.
That's actually Casey Kasem's wife.
Oh, is it? I didn't know.
Yes, because earlier on we got Casey Kasem doing a radio announcement for the Ghostbusters and stuff, and I love, one of the things I love about that is, of course, he was the voice of Shaggy, which is sort of like another like little ghostly sort of like connection, which I thought was funny.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I hadn't thought
whether
about
that was intentional or not. I never know, but I think it was brilliant that he was the sort of, they did a little Casey Kasem thing.
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah. So you get that, and you get him. So you get the terror dog. It's like, who brought the dog? This is one of the scenes where it's like, it's not
held up so well, has it?
I
thought the same when I was watching it. I was like,
when you see when it's the puppet and it's just sat there.
Oh, it looks great.
Awesome. It's an awesome puppet. It's really fucking great. But when it moves, when it crashes through the door and stuff, it's a bit, okay, that's not held up quite so well. I would like it if they'd have maybe do new effects on that. Just to sort of like, sort of beef it up a little. But it is still a brilliant scene. He crashes through the door and he runs through New York being chased. I like it. He goes to he's like, what was he screaming about? He said there was a bear or something. And then it comes through the door. And there's a really weird thing on this. So I was watching the extra scenes on the Blu-ray, and there are these weird scenes in Central Park when he's running away from the terror dog, which were obviously completely cut out because they're odd. And it's Bill Murray and some other guy, and he's playing another character. They're tramps.
All right.
And they're sort of walking along, and they're talking about the difference between martial arts and boxing or something.
Okay.
And it's a really odd little scene, and then of course Lewis goes by them, and then the dog goes by them, and it's like, wow, I'm really glad they cut that out because that was fucking weird.
Yeah, that's really odd.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's interesting to sort of just look them up as scenes, but it's like, they're very odd.
Yeah, for sure. So of course, Lewis legs it. And the terror dog is
corners him against the restaurant, which is brilliant. I love that. He's got him banging on the doors and that. They're all like, they will look at him and then just completely carry on. Yeah. And then it sort of comes out, and I like it. Like, nice doggy, cute little pooch. Maybe I've got a milk bone. Yeah. And then he screams, and like everybody in the restaurant looks, and then immediately just goes back to their conversation. It's like,
again, New York. They're just like,
exactly.
Sure, there's some crazy guy in the park, whatever. So Lewis is later. I think he's brought to by the police, isn't he? He's brought by the police to the station because they're like, well, you deal with weird shit. Here's a weirdo.
I mean, you get him, first of all, you get him running around and like talking to a horse and
acting like stuff. A dog. Yeah. He's kind of acting like the Wolfman, but
again, there's another scene that's cut out there as well where he's goes into a subway, and there's three muggers who basically have a go at him, and he scares them off, sort of thing. But that was cut as well. And I think that would have been an okay one to have probably left in that. But
I guess so. I mean,
they didn't really need it. We already
that's
know
the thing, and the pacing of this movie is kind of perfect. I think we see what we need to see, and I don't think it needs much more. But he's taken to the Ghostbusters station because obviously they're just like, you deal with the weird shit. Here's a weirdo.
The coppers knock on the door, and Janine answers, and she says, "Picking up or dropping off."
Yeah.
So it's like clearly they've been doing this sort of thing for a while.
Yeah. Clearly the police have shown up a few times for one reason or another.
Yeah. And I like that Egon she goes to get Egon, and Egon comes out, and I love that he puts the monitor next to him, and it goes crazy. It's like, bring him in.
Yeah.
And she's like, Janine's like, it's so nice of you to think that poor man. It's like, I don't think he's human. And then again, like I was saying earlier on, with how like their equipment and stuff is like clearly made up. Like the thing they've got him in is like it's literally a colander. They've put a colander on his head and they've wired him up.
But again, it's all supposed to be homemade equipment that they've made themselves, so it kind of follows. Like, you know, it's fine. But then, of course, Peck returns, having enough of Venkman.
First of all, we get the tests and things, and then
I thought Venkman
phones Egon, and tells them about Dana, and
they say to keep them apart, and
one of the things I always found odd is that he's injected her with a load of cc's of Thorazine. Why the fuck is he carrying Thorazine?
Well, again, creepy Venkman.
It's apparently...
It doesn't paint a good picture, does it?
No, it's a fucking date rape drug.
Yeah.
It's like, why is he just carrying this? This is not good.
No, and they never...
Very peculiar.
Yeah, it's very odd.
Yeah. And then Peck turns up, and... with his copper and that poor workman.
Yeah, the poor city guy who's just like, I just literally work for the council. I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know what this building is. I don't know any of this shit. This is so weird.
Doesn't he even say? He even says like, this is completely beyond me. Like, I literally don't know what this does. Like, it's all completely custom built equipment. Like, and you've got the guy who made it standing there like, if you turn this off, this will be disastrous.
Yeah. And I do like when he's gesturing and stuff, you've got like Lewis behind him, like making the same gestures and sort of like doing weird things.
And then of course Venkman comes down and says like, I'm willing to cooperate. I'll do anything. You know, we're happy to cooperate in any way we can. And you know, Peck's just had enough at that point. He's had enough of Venkman's shit. And orders it turned off, which of course is, as Egon says, completely disastrous, and causes like an explosion of light. And all of the ghosts are released, and chaos ensues.
And again, this is one of my favourite scenes because you've got that shot of New York and all the
I love it. Yeah, it's really
spiraling out, and that coupled with the tune that they use on that bit,
it's perfect.
And the shot of Dana in the apartment, looking out of the window, it is the weirdest sort of scary but sexy scene.
Mm-hmm.
It's all perfectly like judged. That like the tune, the way she looks, the weird like lights and stuff.
Yeah,
it's like as a kid you're like, I don't know why I'm turned on slightly now, but there's something weird going on here that I kind of like, because the shot of her is fantastic, and that scene where the wall blows out.
Mm-hmm.
Was literally she was literally stood there in the middle, and they blew it out, and they got the shot
it's
of her.
An amazing shot.
Such a fucking great shot.
Incredible. Do you know, I noticed above all else that shot when I rewatched it last night. I was like, wow, that shot's amazing. It really stood out to me.
There's another one which I think we've actually forgot about. It's I think it's just before this, and it's Ray and for fuck's sake, Winston in the car driving through New York at night, and Winston's. This is where you establish that Winston's a God-fearing man, and he says about revelations and stuff, and you get that great speech, you know, quote from the Bible about, you know, the end of the world and stuff, and how, you know, you get all that, which I love. Alice Cooper uses that speech, that whole section, as his opening for his show on Planet Rock, which I think is fantastic, which I really love. But also at the end of that speech, you get a fucking amazing shot of them driving across one of the bridges, at night and New York behind them. That is such a fucking shot.
It's a really good shot.
There's
a lot of the camera work in this movie is actually really, really good.
Yeah, and you can see why New Yorkers love this movie.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Totally like New York is like a character in this fucking movie.
In the same way that Philly people love Rocky. It's the same kind of thing because it shows the city, it shows the heart of the city, and it does do it really well. It really does. Yeah. But of course, so Lewis is now free. He's free from obviously to wander the streets as they're dealing with the chaos, and of course the Ghostbusters are arrested.
Again, I love all the little shots of the little ghosts, the different ghosts sort of popping around and stuff.
That's what I mean. I think this scene is so much better than Ghostbusters 2. When it's doing the same thing, I think this movie just does it so much better. Like with the cab driver and stuff like that. The cab driver
is pretty hideous.
It's really hideous, yeah.
He's full on rotting corpse dude.
And then just drives like an absolute maniac.
Yeah. So it's such great shots, brilliant little ghost sort of things, and obviously you get Slimer eating all the hot dogs.
Yeah, of course.
And you get Tully turning up to Dana's apartment, and they clearly have some relations going on there, as it were.
Well, yes, obviously it's the Keymaster and the Gatekeeper, and they need a union in order for for Gozer the Gozerian to basically return. So yes, it's pretty heavily insinuated that which is kind of funny in a way, because obviously it was like completely unrequited love from Tully, and Tully's not going to remember any of this. So
there are scenes that are cut out later on when.
Oh yeah, I mean just in the movie that we're watching, not the cut scenes of the movie.
It's more hinted at in this in the released version than anything
shown.
Else.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. They've never done like a director's cut version of it, have they? Like to put the deleted scenes back in. They've never done that.
I don't think you need it though.
I don't think it needs it, but I'd be interested.
The scenes are available, so and I don't think they actually, from what I've seen, they don't bring anything, and most of them aren't finished.
Yeah, so, I mean, it wouldn't take much to finish, but
no, probably not.
But yeah, I don't think it needs it, but I'd be interested to see it, if you know what I mean. It's one of those like I'd like the option if it was like an option on the Blu-ray to be like watch it with deleted scenes, don't watch it with deleted scenes,
so nice. So they basically the Ghostbusters have been arrested and they're all in a jail.
I love this scene where they're talking about the building and they got the plans out, and they're going through the plans, and all of the prisoners just start listening in, and they're like getting all involved, like they know what Egon's talking about. And it's like no one knows what Egon's talking about, but these prisoners are just like okay.
I love it how basically they explained that the building that Dana lives in is they call it Spook Central.
Yeah,
and that
it's been designed that way specifically.
I think Ray had already mentioned at one point that he was looking into the building, and that he said there was something really weird going on with the foundations and things.
And they basically say no one builds buildings like this. This is some like purpose-built thing.
And I love it when he says that. It's one of the only times where you see Ray be sort of like direct, and he slaps Vakeman around the head, which is really funny. And they explained that basically the architect was the leader of the cult of Gozer worshippers, and he says, "Let me guess, Gozer worshippers," and he says, "I didn't study." It's like, and they basically explained that like this whole building was designed to be basically a ghost trap. It was like a complete to build up enough psychic energy to open up a portal for Gozer to come through and basically destroy the world.
Yeah. And then, of course, they are summoned to meet the mayor because shit has really hit the fan.
You should also mention that they when the jail guard is Reginald Vell Johnson, who is the cop from Die Hard.
Yes.
So we got that. And the funny thing is that I did not remember it being him. And have you seen Invincible? It's on.
My God.
It's a. I'm actually enjoying it.
Oh, the show. Sorry, no. There's a really shit film called Invincible that I thought you were talking about then, and I was God, that film's awful. Why would I talk about that?
It's a superhero show on Amazon.
I watched like an episode of it. I thought it was okay. I've not really bothered.
I'm enjoying it at the moment. But one thing I think is quite funny is the high school is called Reginald Vell Johnson High School.
Oh, nice.
And Reginald Vell Johnson does the voice of the principal as well.
Right.
So it's like, that's really fucking cool. It was just one of those sort of like little circular things at the moment that I just thought was quite funny because I did not remember that he was in this movie. I mean, he literally just turns up and says like, the mayor wants to see you, and then that's it. But it was kind of cool.
Yeah. But yeah, so they're taken to the mayor. Who also, obviously, Peck then arrives as well in the mayor's office, and we have this kind of standoff between the two sides.
But what I like about this scene actually is you get where they're all like, everybody's there, like the head of the fire service and stuff, and like all these different precincts, and they're all like panicking, and they're all sort of weird, and then like the bishop turns up.
Yeah.
And I love the sort of the way that he sort of like, you know, he's really respectful for the bishop, and he's sort of like, and the bishop sort of gives him advice on sort of like, you know, I can't really, you know, the church doesn't say anything, but I think, you know, something's seriously going wrong here, sort of thing, you know. And then they're brought in, and Peck sort of like saying about, oh, it's like it's all fun, it's all going to be explained, and one of the guys says like, the walls of the 53rd precinct bled. It's like, how do you explain that? It's like, that's not normal.
No, it's not normal. And I love Ernie Hudson, Winston saying, "I've seen shit that'll turn you white."
Turn you white. Yeah.
So
like, he's when he says, "Is what, you know." Everything was fine until Dickless here switched off the machine, and he says to him, "Is that true?" And Peter says, "Yes, this man has no dick."
But then, of course, Venkman does his car salesman act and convinces the mayor that, you know, you will have saved all of these voters if you let us deal with this issue. Which, you know, it obviously works. You can see the mayor's face immediately. It's like, okay.
You can hear the cogs turning, can't you? When you see his face, like.
And of course we see that the building is basically one big antenna to bring all of the energy, the ghostly energy, spiritual energy, to bring back Gozer and start the apocalypse. So, of course, with a police escort now, the Ghostbusters head to the building. And that is an awesome shot as well. Just seeing them with the police escort and stuff. It's like, oh god! And that car, that ambulance is gorgeous. It's such a cool design. It's such a cool design. So obviously they head off to the building. We get the
earthquake.
The earthquake outside.
You get the fake out.
The fake death.
Swallowed.
What an ending that would have been to the movie if they just got swallowed there. It's like credits.
That would have been it.
Done.
Would have turned up. Everybody would be dead.
Everyone would be dead. Yeah. But of course they get out of that, and then they start the long walk up the stairs. Which I always remember from the video game being absolutely tedious and horrible. And it's tedious and horrible for them. I think, doesn't Venkman say, like, let me know when we get to the 20th floor, I want to puke?
Yeah, I want to throw up, yeah. Where are we? I think we're in the teens. Yeah. Low teens. I think that building that they use actually only has like 20 floors, I think.
Oh, it does. You can totally see where they've added the extra floors.
Yeah.
It wasn't so obvious on VHS, but watching it in high def, it's like, I can see where that matte painting starts.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's cool.
Again, though, it's a bloody gorgeous matte painting, but it is
wonderful.
A very obvious matte painting.
Yeah. It's fine. Like, it wasn't, like, bad.
Oh, no.
It was just obvious. No. You know, I think when I was watching it on VHS as a kid, I never noticed. But as an adult, I immediately was like, oh, yes, matte painting right there. But you're right, it's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous matte painting. So of course they finally make their way to the top, And then they find more steps. They're like, where do those steps go? It's like, oh, have a guess.
Up. Yeah.
And they head up some more steps, a couple more steps. And of course, they reach the top of the building just in time to see Dana and Tully turn into dogs, the terror dogs. They turn into the terror dogs that have been terrorizing them both. They physically turn into them. And that's not a bad effect, that morph effect. Still kind of looks all right.
I think that still looks good.
It's not too bad.
I think most of the movement on this part of the
it's fine.
The dogs is
just
better.
The apartment bit.
I think it's because the sort of the light and stuff it works better. Because
the lighting
is
obviously designed because it was a set rather than a hotel. And also, there's not very much room in those shots in the apartment, which I think is the other reason why it doesn't work so well. It's very small, tight space that's lit specifically, and it just doesn't match the lighting of the dogs. And I think the dogs are a bit, because it's so quick as well, they're kind of oddly cut out in places. It just doesn't quite work. Whereas here, they move slower. And it's a lot easier for them to have tracked and kind of got that in. It looks fine here. It really works.
Yeah. And apparently that set was absolutely ginormous.
It looks huge.
Yeah, and they built it like almost like a story up as well. They so that they could do up, the long shots and apparently the set was so big that they had to have the cameras for certain shots like outside of the actual set.
Yeah,
like in the corridors because it was so massive.
It's a tremendous looking set. Though.
It's so beautiful. It's it's like that bit where they actually get into the corridor and Egon says, "Oh, Art Deco, nice."
Yeah,
and I love that. This little throwaway line like that is just brilliant. And
so of course, sorry, go on.
That's when you get basically the doors have opened and Gozer steps out.
Yeah, the two dogs kind of take their place, and then it kind of creates a thing that, finally Gozer appears. I have never figured out what the fuck Gozer is meant to be wearing in this shot. It's really weird. It's like a really... I don't even know what it's meant to be. It's just odd.
It is weird, isn't it? It's
just odd. It's a really odd design. I like the eyes and stuff. It's just...
I think the thing is though is
it's creepy.
Looks good.
It's creepy. I don't know what's going on with it.
And again, in like the Dana stuff, it's like she's sort of creepy but sexy, so it's a bit like weird.
Yeah.
And again, as a kid, it's like this is very odd. I don't know what I'm feeling here.
Yeah.
There's definitely something going on here that I don't quite understand.
But of course they
and again she was I think she was like a Hungarian model or something, and they had to dub her voice because
I think they would have dubbed her voice anyway.
Yeah, I think they would have. But I love they said that the line "choose and perish." Because of her thick accent, sounded like Jews and berries.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
But yeah, so of course they try with their proton packs to.
Well, no, I think first of all, I love the idea is like, okay, we need to sort of like tell her to fuck off basically. So they choose Ray to go and tell her sort of like, and Ray sort of walks up and has this. I wish I could like say the speech offline, but I can't. But he gives this great speech about cease and desist and like move back to your like plane of origin.
Get back to your realm. Yeah.
Yeah. And she says, "Are you a god?" And he looks round at the other guys and they're all like nodding at him. And he turns around and says, "No." And she says, "Then die." And she basically almost like nukes them off the side of the building. And I love the Winston's line is like, "Ray, when someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes."
I also like though that Venkman says, Ray, go and talk to her. You tell her, right? And then he does, and then immediately after, before she asks him if he's a god, Venkman immediately is like, "Oh yeah, you told her, Ray," like all sarcastically. And it's like, you fucking told him to go and do it. Like he actually had the balls to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it was as good of a speech as you're going to be able to give. Like, he tried his best.
You wouldn't have done any better.
Exactly.
Like you did so much better when you were talking to the ghost earlier on in the library.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so then of course they try their best with the proton packs and fail until they think they've got it. They shoot at her and she disappears. And they think they've like atomized her or something, don't they? They're like, she's completely atomized. She's gone. But of course, then we hear the voice of Gozer, who asks them to choose the form of the Destructor. Now, this bit I always thought was weird because Venkman immediately says, I know this trick. The first thing we think of is going to be the monster. So if we think of J. Edgar Hoover... And I was like, so do we not have a J. Edgar Hoover monster? Like, why didn't that happen?
The thing is...
I've always thought that was really weird.
Yeah, it is weird when you think about it because... He would have said J. Edgar Hoover, and I imagine
everyone would have thought J. Edgar Hoover.
Would have immediately thought of J. Edgar Hoover. So does it not work like that? I mean,
apparently not.
I guess it has to be specifically thought about. So the fact that Ray specifically thinks, I suppose, is the trigger. I suppose is what it is.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So of course he thinks of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
And I know it's like the Chosen is chosen and has come, and they're like, no, I didn't choose anything. Winston, did you choose? No, man, I thought of nothing. It's like Egon is like, no, and then they all just like Ray's face says it all, and Ray should have
shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
Ray should have just shut the fuck up because like the whole street heard it as well. He could have just been like, it wasn't me, it was someone down there. It's fine. But of course he has this lovely line where he's like, I used to love him as a kid. The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, the mascot, I used to love him. I thought he would never hurt anyone. We used to camp and cook, roast the marshmallows and stuff. But of course he's chosen the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. And it made me think, because the other week, you said, have you seen the Ghostbusters trailer? The new one, the Stay Puft one, right? And there's the cutesy Stay Puft Baby Yodas, as you said, Baby Yodas.
Yeah.
But the thing I have with that is I've always thought the fucking Stay Puft Marshmallow Company would be fucked after this. Like, you're not using that. You are not using that as your fucking, character of your company anymore, are you?
I mean...
Let's be honest, you're done as a company.
Theoretically, I mean, he didn't kill anybody
that we know of. He did smash buildings up and stand on things. And, I mean, there might have been people in the church.
I mean, I think I'd like to think there weren't, but
I'd like to think not. I mean, I guess he's made of marshmallow. Maybe he doesn't weigh that much. If he stood on him, they might have just been a bit bouncy.
I think that amount of marshmallow would probably hurt. I mean, the fact that he destroys the church, But I think the thing about this is I think they were terrified that like when they were writing this that it would not work. I think they were like, this
is too silly, or like
I think that was it. They filmed it and they were like, I'm not even sure if this works.
I actually think they managed to make it look quite scary at one point when it looks at them and it looks angry. It's like, well, actually, that is. And the thing is, you need to put yourself
weirdly terrifying,
especially when you put yourself in those positions. Because I always think that with like rubbish giant monsters, right?
Yeah.
You look at like the giant claw or something like that and you're like, God, that looks fucking ridiculous. But then you're like, but if that was real, you would be terrified of it. You would be, because it's giant and it would be terrifying.
Like you said earlier on, the conversation when they're looking down at it.
Yeah.
And Winston's like, this thing is huge. This is terrifying.
Yeah.
And like you said, Egon says, I'm too terrified
beyond the point of rational thought. I love that line. It's so good. Yeah. But yeah, I think the Stay Puft Marshmallow Company would be out of business, or at least they would have changed their mascot after this.
Maybe, yeah.
But apparently not.
Or maybe it would have been good for them. Sometimes disasters can be good.
Maybe. Well, apparently they're still going in 2021 or whenever the hell Afterlife comes out.
True.
So
they
obviously did all right in the end. But yes, of course we get Venkman says nobody steps on a church in my town.
Yeah.
And then of course the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man starts trying to climb the building, and something I hadn't noticed.
They try to torch him first.
They try and torch him.
He's on fire.
He's on fire. It tries to climb the building, and something I'd not noticed before is they do have a nice homage to the King Kong theme when the Marshmallow Man starts climbing the building. I'd never noticed that until the last night when I was watching it. I was like, oh wow, it's like they actually had like a couple of notes from the King Kong original theme.
Yeah.
Which I thought was quite cool. Just a nice little moment.
Yes, I certainly would have noticed it when I was a kid, but...
No, exactly. Things you never notice as a kid, but as an adult, you're like, I've heard that somewhere.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, really cool. Yeah, and of course then the whole building kind of sets on fire because the Marshmallow Man's on fire.
Yes.
And then Egon says, I know what I said earlier about crossing the streams being a terrible idea. But I think like he kind of theorizes at this point, well, we're fucked if we don't, so we might as well.
Yeah, exactly.
What have we got to lose?
It's our only option.
Yeah.
We have to do it. And they're like, well, we're in.
Yeah. But at that point, we're in for a penny, in for a pound, and they're going to cross the streams and aim it at the gate. Which
I love the little sort of the little thingy as they're walking towards the gate, and he's like, grab the sticks, and they're like, grab and stuff, turn them on, sort of thing. Make them hard, I think he says, and they twist the thing, and it goes. And I love that whole little bit is brilliant. They do it in sort of like almost military style, and then sort of like they cross the streams. Yeah,
they do indeed, and it does indeed destroy. It destroys the gate, and it destroys Gozer. It destroys the Marshmallow Man.
And I like when I watched the thing on the effects and stuff, and I think they said to the effects guy, he said, what do you want? He says, well, we just want this massive explosion on the top thing.
Yeah.
He says, yeah, I can do that. And they showed the explosion, which is amazing. That explosion is
the explosion at the top of the building.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's a
crazy.
Great explosion.
The superimposed explosion is awful, but then the explosion that you see from ground level is incredible.
And the guy said, I think the director said to him, You know that explosion would kill everybody, don't you?
Yeah, they're not surviving that. Yeah,
he's like, but whatever.
It looks awesome though, so fine.
Exactly, yeah. They really should not have survived that.
No,
even as a kid, I thought
it's a bit. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
There's no way they survived that.
But they do. Everyone's covered in marshmallows. Peck gets comically doused in marshmallow on the ground, which I always thought, like, isn't that marshmallow like molten, burning hot marshmallow?
Yeah,
it just melt his skin.
Yeah, it would probably have done a lot of damage, actually.
I would have thought so, but it's just played for comedy and fine.
Yeah.
It's a bit, It'd be that would have made sure it wasn't a PG movie if his skin just melted off from the marshmallow.
God, yeah. He end up looking like the guy from RoboCop. Yeah, that would have been a very different movie.
It would have been a very different movie. Just chuck it in at the end, just as a surprise.
Yeah.
So yeah, of course. Then the destroyer's been sent back. Gozer's been banished from our realm, and then of course
the overturned statues of the dogs. And I love Ray says, wow, it smells like
barbecue dog.
Burnt barbecue dog in here. And like, Peter's face is like, Ray. It's like, please. And it's like, oh, I'm sorry, Fakeman. I didn't think
he's like, I am so sorry. I wasn't thinking.
Yeah.
But of course, her hand comes through part of the statue, and we see that they're fine. They're just inside the statue.
Yeah.
And that's nice. Of course, Lewis has managed to free himself mostly. He's just got the dog's head on. Somebody turn on the lights. Yeah, and of course, then they head down and we get the theme, and they're welcomed into the street by all the people watching. I really like the ending. It's a real sort of feel good ending. As the credits are rolling, you kind of see them all there celebrating and stuff. And for some reason, Sigourney Weaver's wearing some like grandmother's coat that she found somewhere.
Yeah, I guess it's
or a dress. I don't know what it is.
I think it's a dressing gown. I presume it was.
Yeah, it looks like a dressing gown or something, but it's got weird patterns on it.
They had to have gone through her apartment, so I guess she just picked up from
grab
there.
whatever you can that's not on fire.
Yeah, because I think the thing is, though, you say it's a weird thing, but if you look at her dress sense...
Oh, I know, her dress sense all the way through is really weird.
Her is pretty ropey.
There's a scene where she... I think it's when they go back to Dana's apartment the first time. She's wearing some crazy coat. It looks like something out of like Dracula or something. Like Hammer's Dracula. It's crazy. Yeah. It's the kind of thing that you'd see Peter Cushing wearing, you know? Yeah. It's just, what on earth? What on earth is with her fashion? But yeah, that's Ghostbusters, and I still think genuinely holds up amazingly well to this day.
100%. Other than a few effects that haven't aged as well, I think overall it's still an absolutely stunning and funny movie. It's still genuinely hilarious.
For sure. I laughed a couple of times watching it this time. So yeah. Even now, after the amount of time
despite the fact that I knew everything that was coming, it still made me laugh. So it's that's a sign of a well written comedy. Absolutely. When you can still laugh. And and things will still surprise you, even though what it's coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, everybody in it's great. And you can tell that they worked really hard on it. They all loved doing it. They all really completely. Because I think Bill Murray, I think, was going to retire at this point. He was living in France. He didn't want to come back, and they basically persuaded him to come, and he said he would only do it if he could direct another movie, and I don't remember what the other movie was, but it came out the same year. So yeah, he kind of almost given up doing stuff, and luckily he didn't, because he went on to do fucking awesome movies. But yeah, he came back and to do this, and I'm so bloody glad he did, because even though he's weird and creepy now as adults, it's still
awesome.
Still brilliant. He's still a great character.
Yeah, he's a wonderful character. It's just some moments you're like, oh, that's weird. He's some of this. I guess it's just the humor. It's like, some of that's not aged so well.
I mean, I am gonna watch number 2 again soon, just because I think
it's a bit rough.
Just because I think I need to see it again, because it's been even longer, I think, since I last saw that, and I know what to expect, but I still am intrigued now to see just how bad it is.
It's not terrible. There are still bits of it I like.
Yeah.
And funny enough, you were saying that the library scene always creeped you out in this movie. The bit that creeps me out of the second one, and it still sticks in my mind now, is Janos.
Yeah.
Cross-dressed, coming across the sky with the pram and the...
That is weird, isn't it?
That's weird, and it creeped me right out as a kid. For some reason, that creeped me right out. I don't know why, it always creeped me out as a kid. It's funny, but...
That's a weird scene that, like... Because he's dressed as the nanny and stuff, you just think, this is ridiculous. But then you think, actually, it is kind of weird and scary.
It is. It's completely unnecessary. It's like, go and steal the baby. You don't have to dress up as a... woman to do it. Just go and do it, like, you crazy man. But yeah, it's good stuff. But it's not terrible. Ghostbusters 2 is not terrible. It's just not a patch on the first one. I think that's the problem, and nothing ever will be. I don't think any sequel will be.
No,
it's lightning in a bottle. It's a one-off. Right people, right time. I just don't see them repeating that, to be honest. But no. I'm more than happy to give Afterlife a go. More than happy.
I still am, even though I'm a slightly more dubious about it now.
I was completely on board until the Stay Puft Marshmallow.
Yeah, same here. I think that made me think twice about it.
Yeah.
So see, I mean, again, like we said, it can't be worse than the fucking 2016 one. So at least that's something, I mean, it's a low bar, but it's got to be better than that, right?
I would hope so.
I mean, I think the most upsetting thing is the fact that Harold Ramis isn't going to be in it, which is I think a shame.
I think the best thing about the Afterlife, the first trailer at least, is that it feels completely different.
Yeah.
And I think that's really to its strengths. It's just doing its own thing. It's a new story in a different place. They could have just gone over the same old shit again, but they didn't. It's not set in New York.
But it does establish its connection though, which is a good thing.
But what I mean is, it feels like it's telling its own story. And I think that works really well.
Yeah, we could. So.
But then that trailer came out the other week, which then made me worry, like you. It's like, oh, actually, though, are you just going to do... Because I don't just want nostalgia for the sake of nostalgia. I want a story here. Well, I guess we'll find out. It's out this year, right? End of the year?
Yeah, I think so.
November.
Yeah.
So, hopefully...
Yeah, I mean, it's got a great cast in it, so, you know, I am hopeful.
Yeah, me too.
So you know, we'll see when it comes, but yeah,
I'm hoping it's better than Ghostbusters 2. If we can get one this like a great sequel to Ghostbusters, I'll be really happy with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I suspect it will fall between the second and the remake. That's where I feel like it's going to fall. I think it'll be better than the remake, but still not as good as 2, which in itself isn't great. But we'll see. We'll see. But either way, undeniably, Ghostbusters 1984, an absolutely fantastic movie.
Yeah, completely brilliant.
I guess next week we'll be back to our usual fare. So, yes. Thanks for listening, everybody. Stay safe, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.